Welcome all to another week here of the Cold Hard Truth on Sports. I am your host, Matthew Long. Great week ahead of us. Super Bowl 52 was probably one of the best Super Bowls that I've seen. Just from a pure entertainment standpoint. A lot of people thought maybe it could go into overtime with that the Hail Mary at the end of the game that could have forced the Patriots, had they caught that, to go for two, to go into overtime. Very, very, very interesting game, fun game to watch. I enjoyed watching my kids watched part of the Super Bowl before they had to go to bed. So they enjoyed it. They had a lot of questions. My wife too. So it was great. I like to get the family involved in it. But it was a very entertaining game. And it was one of those situations where kind of the fear, in the largest part, the fear had been that that we would see Doug Peterson try to outwit Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. This wasn't so much the case in this particular game. Although he seemed to do enough things right and out-coached him and ended up winning the game. There was a few key points in the game that stood out to me. A few things that Doug Peterson made a decision to do that ultimately I believe is what won them the game. That particularly that the Jaguars missed on. So I will get into that here in the show as well. For those of you that are tuning in, I know a lot of you are listening live on the Spreaker app. I do have some breaking news here. Breaking here, I tweeted out about within the last hour. So breaking news. It was announced earlier this evening. So that the new head coach for the Indianapolis Colts will be the offensive coordinator, would have been the former offensive coordinator for the New England Patriots. It was announced earlier this evening that Josh McDaniels is or would be the new head coach for the Indianapolis Colts. Some of his assistants had already been signed to their contracts and been in the building and started working. The breaking news is, if you didn't see the social media, there's been some league sources. Adam Schefter was actually the first one I saw that was reporting on this as well. Josh McDaniels has done an about-face. After a couple days of deliberation, he has decided that he is declining the head coaching position and offer from the Indianapolis Colts. So he will no longer be the head coach for the Indianapolis Colts, even though it was announced earlier this evening that he was. He has declined the offer, and he will remain the offensive coordinator for the New England Patriots. So this is a huge revelation as far as the coaching carousel goes in a lot of parts. Not just simply because now New England is without a head coach, but their top three choices, finalists for that position, they all the rest have jobs. So now the coaching pool that they have to pull from, that could define their, the future of their organization could very much change. Now, I did report earlier today, Greg Schiano did interview for the defensive coordinator position with the Patriots. Now, although I'm not aware that Greg Schiano interviewed for the head coaching position the first time around, I wouldn't be surprised if he does, in fact, come back around and interview for the head coaching vacancy in Indianapolis. He is a sought-after coach. I said that it was a good hire by Tennessee. They backed out of that deal because of some fluke news, fake news, and I don't even want to mention the publication or radio show that really drove this insanity at Tennessee that got him ultimately reversed them to back out of his deal. But it was really something where he was in some rare air to be caught up in a situation like that. So it's pretty interesting to see how this stuff's going to shape up, because this literally throws everything off kilter for the Colts. It does sure up some things for the Patriots. So where they were looking at losing a significant factor or portion of their decision-making power within each game of staff, with this, Josh McDaniels will stay. Now, this, from what I'm understood, from what my sources are saying, and from what others like Adam Schefter are reporting, it was actually the owner, Kraft, that went in, talked to Josh McDaniels after the Super Bowl, and really sold him with the caveat that it was going to sweeten the deal on his contract, to stay there, work with Belichick and Brady. Now, from what I've understood, from some say that it's not that he's a successor. They're going to have him there, stay around as a successor to Bill Belichick, because those sources don't feel that. And again, they're a lot closer to that organization than I am, and my source didn't say anything about that. That they don't really play the successor role so much. It's really an open-ended term for Belichick and Brady, and Brady plans to stay as long as Belichick does. So, again, Brady said in his reality show, 2 more Super Bowls, 5 years. He wants to get to, 45. That's the magic number, 45. So he's 40, almost 41 now. So he has 5 years to accomplish 2 Super Bowls. I mean, they played in 8. He's won 5. So, again, he's in rare air, and he has done enough to show that he can continue to play for the next 5 years. So we'll see where that ends up. So for now, Bill Belichick will still be the head coach. He said he doesn't have any sort of gumption on leaving now. Maybe if they won the Super Bowl, maybe that would be a little bit closer. I don't know. But he's one of those guys that, him and Tom Brady kind of share the affinity, the addiction for the sport of football. They love football. It's really their first love. And, they don't have any reason as of yet to today say that they're done with the current situation that they're in. So those two will be back. So the question was, what were they going to do with their assistants moving forward? Obviously, Bob Kraft was able to get Josh McDaniels to say, again, one of the best offensive coordinators in the game. He has been for some time. So he's going to be there. Now, there's been some question, is Gronk going to retire? Will he stay? And to be honest with you, the Patriots, from what I've understood, is if they've taken phone calls, they've had some quiet conversations about moving Gronkowski. Again, he did sign to a long-term deal for some good money, but he struggled with injuries. So, again, they've kind of come to him and said, hey, we want to renegotiate some of the clauses in terms of your contract. So in case you get hurt, we're not stuck with money that's going to hit the cap. So they want to put more incentives into his contract. But he's struggled with injuries, so he doesn't want to renegotiate that sort of those sort of things with his contract. Now, they showed last year that they could make it to the Super Bowl and win without Gronkowski. They've showed at times, I mean, even this year, they were able to go in and for a half do what they needed to do without Gronkowski, without Edelman, and make it and beat the Jaguars to get to the Super Bowl. So they've already prepared, in a sense, they've prepared themselves to life without Rob Gronkowski. And I've said for a couple years now, because again, with my sources, and I'm kind of looking at the tea leaves in the water. The tea leaves have kind of said, he has this contract, he's hurt a lot, we can do without him. His value with them has diminished in a sense that they know they can do it without him. Obviously, they feel that they're better with him. We saw the entire second half and how much effect Rob Gronkowski can have and does have on the game. He truly looks like a man among boys when he's healthy. There's not really many people that can go toe for toe with him in coverage. He has good hands. He has leaping ability. He has size, strength. He has okay speed. I mean, the things that he provides, the tangibles, just the tangibles alone are very attractive to have around and very beneficial to have around. So I doubt that he would even be willing to renegotiate the contract if they feel that puts them in a situation to where he I don't know. I wouldn't say he's not subservient enough, but if he's not willing to, work within the Patriot way, we could definitely see him move here in the offseason or by the trade deadline next year. So they'll have Julian Edelman back. They have Chris Hogan. They have Brandon Cook. Again, it came down to the last possession of the game. They lost him in the first, right there almost at the beginning of the game. They lost Brandon Cook. So they've showed that without some of their key players that have been productive players, that they can still go down the field. They can still be productive. Again, White has showed that he can go out there. He's one of those hellacious, angry runners. He runs. He's a violent runner. He showed really good footwork and why they have him around. And again, I don't know. Again, I know there's some people that have a lot of reserve with Big Ten running backs, or backs that are from like Wisconsin or Michigan State, Michigan, Nebraska, Penn State. These Big Ten running backs they seem to have some issue with. But look at the two guys in the playoffs. Just within these playoffs and the Super Bowl. Clement, the rookie running back out of Wisconsin, he was their Darren Sproles last night. He showed up in a big way. He had over 100 yards in that game. I don't think he had 100 yards for the season, but he showed up in the big moment. That's how Super Bowls are won. Guys that are the obscure guys, the guys that are on the 53 that maybe haven't played a big role or haven't really made it to print, as I like to say it. They haven't made it to print. People aren't really talking about them. Those are the guys that throughout practices, throughout game planning, throughout situational drills, that they see that they can play big in these sort of situations. So, heads off to him. White is another. He's, again, another guy from Wisconsin. Played big. Rex Burkhead. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife for the Patriots. He's quite frankly, from the people that I talked to, even when he was in Cincinnati, they had a running back situation where he wasn't getting as much reps or being utilized as a back as much as he was a receiver, as a Y, or a Y or a Z, kind of the H-back role. He can run it. He runs hard. He finishes every play, but he's so good as a receiver, so they can use him and catch and run. So even having Edelman out, they can still utilize. They can utilize Rex Burkhead in the same way they use Edelman. They have this depth, and they bring in guys that they really understand how they can use them best, and they utilize those skills and their abilities in the best way that those players can be used. It's really looking at them and finding, what is the best use for this tool. Obviously, anybody that's ever seen a tool chest, you have different kinds of pliers. There are some pliers that it looks like you could use them for everything, but because of the nature of those pliers, they may be more harsh on the bolt or nut or whatever you're trying to loosen or tighten. Then you have wrenches that will actually fit you can customize to fit a certain type of thread or size of a nut or bolt. And then you have ratchets, and then you have other kind of ratchets that are torque wrenches. So, each of those tools that the Patriots have in their toolbox has uses, and they have a lot of guys that are Swiss Army knife, multiple functional guys. Maybe, just like having different screw heads. I don't know if anybody's ever noticed, but that crosshead or Phillips head and screw, some are a lot thinner, some are point, some are wider, and they all have different purposes. And for anybody that's used them around the house, if you ever notice that, I'm stripping a lot of screw heads, it doesn't want to grip. Well, it's probably because you're using the wrong screw head. A lot of people make that mistake. Same way a lot of people just get guys in and they can't utilize them in the right way. They have a purpose. They have skill sets that ultimately are going to be the best fit for them. But the teams aren't always using the players for the best skill set. So, and that's unfortunate in a lot of ways. But Patriots do a really good job of self-scouting and personnel development. So, all right. Hope we can bring the screen back up here. There we go. All right, we got that. Good. But that's kind of been the big revelation of this evening, with the New England Patriots retaining, being able to convince Josh McDaniels to stay there in New England as the offensive coordinator. Again, this was something that, from what I've understood, my sources and other reports say that it's mainly Kraft that went to him and sold him on staying there, with caveat of a bigger contract, sweetening his contract there. Obviously, a lot of guys, it's not just the money; they want opportunity, but the situation with Josh McDaniels isn't. I mean, honestly, because we don't see this happen too often. But it's not too different from what we've seen. We've seen this past off season with Tony Romo going to Fox, and kind of people worrying that if something opens up, Tony Romo is going to get the phone call and he's going to leave the broadcast booth and go back to playing. And, obviously, the guy, it's funny because Fox ended up losing their guy to go back and play. So they were they were in a situation that they did pull a broadcaster, and a new broadcaster in Jay Cutler. Again, he was with the second team for Fox. He did decide that he wanted to continue playing. He's very familiar with the offensive coordinator down in Miami. So it is one of those situations where, him and Logan's had some familiar relationship. So he decided to go work with him. And obviously he kept the Dolphins going. He played pretty well this year until he got hurt. So, I don't know. We'll see what he does going forward. But, again, that situation's not too different. I mean, particularly talking about with Tony Romo. If Tony Romo wants to play, he can tell his agent, hey, I want to give this another shot. He's one of those guys that he could go and continue playing. He passed the physical. He's feeling good. I mean, people getting a veteran quarterback in is not something that too many people shy away from, especially a guy that's played at high levels. And again, he played at a really high level with the Cowboys in not so good of situations, not so good of personnel, lots of changing in coaches and offensive coordinators, and the team chemistry just never had a chance to, never got to ferment. It never got to gel. They didn't get that ample opportunity, and then finally you get an offensive line, a respectable defense, some skilled players around him, and then he got hurt. He comes back, gets hurt again. Dak Prescott's there. He loses the job because Dak played well. So, and again, I won't get into my critique on Dak Prescott, but Romo's one of those guys that can get a starting quarterback job in the NFL if he wants it. I don't think he will. I think he's done. He has a career first team with CBS. I think it's CBS. Or is it NBC? Which one is it? Yeah. Anyways, so I mean, he's in a good position where he's at. So, but if Josh McDaniels decides he wants to be a head coach somewhere, I mean the situation will be there. If he wants it, he can definitely do that. They're not going to say no. He will get an opportunity if he so chooses to go somewhere else. It's not a question. I mean, he's top one of the top offensive coordinators in football. Those guys you don't say no, we'll pass. We'll find somebody less talented and less ample to perform the job. I mean, you don't. So, but right now he's comfortable. He's comfortable with the Patriots. He was comfortable going back on his decision after deliberation, talking with Kraft selling him on. And again, don't for 1 second think Tom Brady didn't have anything to do with this. He, like a lot of big stars, tried to distance themselves, LeBron James, from situations, but we know that 100% they have something to do with it. LeBron James doesn't do it well. And I'll get into that later tonight. That is a topic we'll get into. And Rob Parks Jr. will be joining the show around 10 tonight to talk more about the NBA. The Lakers seem like they're doing an about face, and they say that they're changing directions for 2018 and 2019 for the draft. I'm not sold. I'm not sold on what they're saying now, but I'll explain that later in the show, as well as the relationship that we're seeing between the Cleveland Cavaliers and mainly Dan Gilbert, but overall that's the Cleveland Cavaliers. Dan Gilbert is a guy that does not want to budge or move much. He's bended little in most situations. From my understanding, LeBron wants to eventually be in ownership in the NBA. He'd prefer the Cavaliers because that's his hometown. There was also talk before LeBron decided to come back, to see if Dan Gilbert would be willing to essentially trade organizations, trade and be the owner of the Detroit Pistons, and then the Pistons ownership would take over in Cleveland. So essentially they would trade organizations, which obviously Dan Gilbert was not willing to. Now at this point, LeBron James has a no-trade clause, short contract, and options. So he has a lot of leverage here. And Dan Gilbert hates that. And if I was Dan Gilbert, knowing that, I would make sure that it was publicly known that, we're open to trading LeBron James. And we've asked him to waive his no-trade clause so we can get something back out of the deal, so we're not left high and dry, which there's many teams that would be interested in that. I'll highlight more of that later. And from what I've understand, LeBron James has already made it public that he will not waive his no-trade clause. So, which is not breaking news. So I'll get more into that toxic relationship there as well. And it kind of rolls into Kyrie Irving, him leaving. And again, I'll explain more of that tonight after the 10 o'clock hour on the show. So, but thank you all for tuning in tonight. I know a lot of you listen every week on Blog Talk Radio. Know that we are live on Blog Talk Radio till 11:30 p.m. Eastern. But if you want to listen to the whole show live, why wouldn't you? If you download the Spreaker app, free, little star, the Spreaker, that's like speaker with an R after the P. So download the Spreaker app. You can listen to all the shows, unabated, the full 3 hours of the show, from the free app. So I know a lot of you have been moving over each week to listening there. So thank you for listening over there to the live shows. Also, the podcast shows are there as well. I know more and more people are finding us on SoundCloud each and every week. Appreciate it. I haven't gotten the report on iTunes, but I know we're over on iTunes as well. And of course, as always, you can head over to the website, thechtonsports.com. The listen link in the upper left-hand corner. You can listen to all of our shows on the Go Along Media channel here on Blog Talk Radio. Take that L's on Wednesdays from 8:30 to 10:30, and then the Boxing Source is every Sunday starting at 7:30 Eastern with James Bell. James will not be on tonight. I know he, besides being the boxing editor, he is one of our contributors for the NFL and college football. So if you want to see his summation and take on the Super Bowl, you can definitely head over to the site right now, thechtonsports.com. We have his his post-game reaction over there on the website, so you can get that right now. But great show ahead of us. A lot to talk about. Wonderful Super Bowl that we had here this past week. And man, it's so fun to get it down to the wire. It was funny. I was talking with we had a guy in one of the chat groups. It was like, you guys always talk about New England coming back and winning. Why are you so quiet about the Eagles making a comeback win to win the Super Bowl? So I do want to address that real quick, because some people don't understand what a comeback is. They assume because you've lost the lead, then regained it, and ultimately retained it to win, that was a comeback win. No, it's not. You may have come back and regained the lead, but that's not a comeback win. So a comeback win is essentially within a possession or two of the end of the game, as the game is expiring, you were able to regain the lead and win. Okay? So if you do that at the beginning of a quarter or the quarter before, that is not a comeback win. That is regaining the lead and holding the other team off. So preventing the other team's comeback, essentially. So the other team is now in the court to where they can try to come back, which the Patriots try to do. And they came down to that last possession and the Hail Mary. A bunch of people are already complaining about the refereeing and the catches. And I'll get into the catch rule and what I saw as a catch and explain what my understanding was at that time and the call that was on the field. But yes, even that last play, there was some times where the refs decided to swallow their whistle, no calls, and they were in situations where they could have made a call and decided to ultimately not make a call, which is perfectly fine in some situations. In the Super Bowl, I know a lot of people see and have a lot riding on it, and especially from money standpoint, from a money standpoint, a lot of people bet it, and more people. There was more money wagered this year on the Super Bowl than any other time in history on an event like this, and more big chunks of money spent on betting than the previous Super Bowl, which set a record last time. And a lot of people, and the people, were voting more heavily towards the Eagles, which was, I think, a lot of times the fan driving of that is who they want to win. Again, it might be because they're sick of seeing the Patriots win. That's fine. I don't have a quorum if you just don't want to see the Patriots win anymore. It's understandable that they win because, they put in a lot of work. They have a system that works, and they have a way to essentially keep that engine running and mowing along. So obviously, I don't have an issue. I don't have an issue with a certain team being there every year. I'm not getting fatigued from that. A lot of people, they get tired. They get a fatigue. Want to see somebody else win. Well, Patriots have been to 8 of them in the time that in the Bill Belichick, Tom Brady era. They've been to 9 or 8. They've won 5. So it's not every year that they win it. They've won it 5 times in a decade. So a little over a decade. So it's not the. Is it really? Is it 16? Is it 16? Well, anyways, that's even more so. That's even more so. if yeah. So if I agree. Hold on, just give me a second. If they've been doing it for this long, you know, being drafted in 16 years or 18 years, drafted in 2000. I mean, 17, 18-year career. Just finished 18. He's won 5 in 18 years. He's played in 8 in 18 years. So about 40% of the time he's been in the league, he's played in the Super Bowl. That's amazing. But it's not every year he's winning it. He's only won, was that 20, 18%, 16% of the Super Bowls that he's over his career? It's still very high, but I'm just saying it's people seem to have a fatigue. Because of success, people want to see newness, you know? That's what people do. That's why we don't want to see the super teams. You know, I don't have a problem with the super teams. The Yankees for years had super teams. They still try to put together super teams. A lot of teams in baseball put together so-called super teams. They don't win the World Series every year, though. I mean, how many super teams had the Dodgers put together over the last 10 years? A few. What about Boston? How many? A few. When was the last time the Dodgers won a World Series? The Angels put together some of those teams, dropping some coin. You know? Again, it's not about how much money you spend on talent and how much talent you acquire. It's about how the talent can perform. And ultimately, what comes out at the end of the day in the game. Can you win? Can you win? And that's what it's all about, winning. The Patriots have found a way to circumvent having the best talent at positions, at all positions, and being able to win. That is the main key, winning. So, hats off to them. Good, you got a system. And at the end of the day, you can sell that system. You can train people and sell that system, you know? That's why they're not going to have a hard time finding coaches. So, again, right now, the Patriots are looking at how they're going to fill the vacancy. We're looking at filling an offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, but now it's just defensive coordinator, you know, because they were able to retain Josh McDaniels. So good for them. Absolutely good for them. It's not a bad thing for the Patriots, that is. I mean, it's a pretty crummy deal. Pretty crummy deal for the Colts. It's putting them in a pretty peculiar situation. Now, I have talked in the past, again, that I think Belichick is closer to the end of his career than the middle or beginning, and that he has worked to help coach up other of his assistants to help him get these jobs. Matt Patricia did take the role as head coach for the Detroit Lions, and he's already had his press conference saying that he is 100% focused now moving forward as the Detroit Lions head coach. So that's very good for the Detroit Lions. Now, Greg Schiano, again, he was interviewing for defensive coordinator position for the Patriots. Now, because the Colts were put in this quagmire and they do not have their top 4 options available, for head coach, we may see them interview Greg Schiano. He is one of many good coaches. Available for NFL teams to look at. Obviously, pretty much everybody has their head coach, but the Colts at this point. Let me grab me that list. Yeah, give me that list. So, we might see some moving and shaking, some other guys that previously were not mentioned, brought in. I don't know ultimately who they're going to hire. Again, they liked Josh McDaniels. They liked Beneville. They liked. Speaking of the Colts, they were headstrong on McDaniels. They were headstrong on him, but obviously he declined. Cardinals went with Steve Wilkes, who was a defensive guy. One of the top defensive coordinators in the league. He did well there in Carolina. Matt Nagy, he's off the market. He was the offensive coordinator under Andy Reid in Kansas City. Again, young guy. Most of these guys that I'm seeing being hired right now are under 40. Several guys under 40. Matt Patricia, again, another guy. He's replacing Jim Caldwell, who was fired 4 games in after 4 seasons. Far in, he didn't even finish the season, So, and then the Vikings lose their offensive coordinator Pat Shurmur to the Giants. So, and he was one guy who was signed up for John Gruden. I didn't think John Gruden was going to get back into coaching. He's had such a sweet gig there at ESPN. ESPN will move around assets. Disney will move assets to make sense. Acquiring assets sometimes is something that also brings in money. A good example of a company that acquired assets to become bigger and better, Berkshire Hathaway. They made coats, textiles. The coat company, and it failed for years. I think it was like 30 years. Buffett had Berkshire Hathaway, and it was just failing. So he's like, it's not working at that purpose. I'll make it a holding company. And he did. And that worked. So, again, like I said, Mike Venable, another one of those guys. He was a defensive coordinator in Houston. So he got hired as the head coach in Tennessee. Tennessee kind of moved off their coach, have been kind of moving off their coaches kind of quick. And from what I've understood, he was John Robbins' choice kind of all along. He was a CEO coach, kind of. He was good at managing people and running an operation. So I know John Robbins there in Tennessee has always had high confidence in Mike Venable, and he was he was one of those guys that was really high on the radar for the Colts. I know the Cincinnati Bengals. They, although they're keeping despite keeping Marvin Lewis, after 15 years in Cincinnati. He signed a 2-year contract at the beginning of the month, beginning of January. So he's coming back. So obviously that's opening up. And Jimmy Haslam, the owner of the Browns, said that he's keeping Hugh Jackson. Again, he feels that the 0-16 was a result more so of front office and not coaching. So, he brings in a guy there in Cleveland to make some moves and to boost some more of the football guys, because there's John Dorsey's good. John Dorsey is a good choice. Not to say Sashi Brown was bad. Sashi Brown is one of the analytics guys. He wasn't a football guy. So, in sports, we have this, especially in football right now, there's this battle between football guys and like Revenge of the Nerds. The nerds, the analytic guys. Analytics say this. And again, I've tried to explain this before. Analytics are good. You have to look at analytics. If you're not looking at analytics, you're falling short. You will fall short. You can't just stick to just your eyes and just football, just the football side of it. The analytics give a better picture to what you're seeing. They help you read the text a little bit better. It's a little clearer, a little sharper, bigger spaces, just like when you go to the eye doctor. What's better, 1 or 2? 3 or 4? 4 or 5? That's essentially what analytics do. They help clarify it up. They clear it up, help you understand better what you're looking at. So that's the big thing for analytics. You got to have the analytics in there. Sashi was an analytics guy. He didn't understand. He didn't have enough of the football side, and that's where ultimately where Haslam felt that he fell short. So fired him, and brought in John Dorsey. Now, John Dorsey is definitely a football guy. So he will, in my opinion, be able to make a bit of a difference. And they had to make this. The Browns had to make that move. They had to make that move, especially if they're keeping Hugh Jackson, because you want to see things run better. And he can run stuff. He spent 4 seasons with the Chiefs. Again, it sounds like the Chiefs are wearing thin, as long as they have Andy Reid. Andy Reid's good at finding and grooming assistants. So I'm not worried about the Chiefs this offseason. They trade last week on the show. It was about this time where we broke breaking news of Alex Smith getting traded over to the Washington Redskins. We're on here with Levon Kirkland. He was on here last week with him. So I anticipate Levon will be on here in weeks again. We didn't have him on tonight. There was just so much I wanted to get into tonight. And I definitely wanted to make sure we had time for NBA. And I had a few guests kind of lined up. Just sometimes scheduling just doesn't work, but definitely have him back here in the near future. So, yes. Well, I don't know if I'm going to get into that. I see a few of you on the message board here. If I'm going to get into National Signing Day, I don't know. I might. I don't know. I'm not. I don't spend much time covering National Signing Day. I know. I know a lot of people are very interested in it. I covered college football pretty closely. This is one aspect of it. But I cover more so college football and the transition into the NFL and the NFL. I don't have time to cover high school. And so, but I do, I do look up on it. I do kind of keep up on it a little bit. Especially since Nebraska's been up in the top 25 the last few weeks. So we'll see where they end up. Here. Maybe I might get into that. I don't know. I was gonna have somebody on tonight to talk a little bit about that, but again, scheduling conflicts. So I might get into it. I might not. I don't know. Maybe I might do a podcast about it tomorrow. Haven't decided yet. It's on the list of things to go over and talk about. But it's a 3-hour show once a week. Again, we have much more pressing things, in my opinion, going on in the NFL that I want to get to and cover and talk about this evening, as well as the NBA. So, because the NBA, we're here in February. We're not too far away from the playoffs. We're not too far away from the playoffs. And it's starting to get more exciting. Also, I went to one of the training facilities where guys train for scouting combine and pro days. Was there on, was it Monday? Yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. So I got a bit of information there. So I will be back down that way on tomorrow. Tomorrow? Thursday? Tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. So tomorrow I'll be back down that way. I'll share some more then, or next week on the show. So, it's just a build-up. A lot of things are building up. I know I was talking to an agent there, and it was like, you put out all these weekly updates. You do constant content on stuff, and I do each week on the show. I build content throughout the week for the show. Sometimes it gets in print, sometimes it doesn't. But my main thing is get it for the show. If I want to go beyond that, I put it into writing. Time allows, and I put it up for on the website as well. So I will have stuff up that are combine and draft related for the NFL on a lot of these players that I've been scouting and talking with, as well as information. I've talked to numerous scouts and agents. So I'm just trying to make sure that the puzzle's more complete. Again, because throughout the season, there's so many guys. Like, for example, if I said Aaron Stinney. Aaron Stinney. Have you ever heard of him? Aaron Stinney? He's not a household name. He got an invite to the Senior Bowl. Didn't play. And he did not get an invite to the Combine. But the guy's like 6'5", 310. Good movement. Strong. He's a defensive end. So that's defensive tackle. Defensive lineman converted into an offensive tackle. And he should be on every NFL scout's radar. He should be. People don't know who he is. A lot of people are going to probably try to figure out how to spell his name and then Google him. He plays for James Madison, FCS school, who's played for a national title last 2 years. They won one last year against North Dakota. North Dakota State. So, again, there's a lot of guys out there. I don't watch a lot of FCS. Most guys don't. Especially, NFL guys during the season, they aren't really watching a lot of football because they have self-scouting. They have their scouts out there working, kind of getting ideas on guys. But these are major school guys. These are guys that they see going in the first 2 days of the draft. They're spending more time on, and then they rely on these various bowl games at the end of the season, as well as the postseason exhibitions, for, all-star games, like the NFLPA, Shrine Game, the Senior Bowl, now the Tropical Bowl. There's 4 of them right there. There's one other one, Under Armour or something or other. There's Bowl 2. There's like 5 or 6 of them, that are pretty popular. People go to. So they rely on drawing some more information with those. It's the way NFL teams actually get hands-on, being able to work with this different talent. Then they got the scouting combine, and they have all these pro days. Plus, time to look at film. Once they've kind of figured out a list of who they want to look at. So that's what the off-season's more so spent on. Not so much during the regular season. During the regular season, for the most part, they're relying on the media to feed them and filter out a lot of the guys that would be in those first couple days of the draft. How they're performing, who's on these lists for awards. Those are going to be the guys that are the best performers in college football. However, just because the guy doesn't have stats or isn't performing a certain way in college doesn't mean he's not going to perform well in the NFL. And systems are different matches, and that really brings me into of my understanding of the Super Bowl. There's this wonderful book. It's called Outliers. The author is Malcolm Gladwell. He's who all has he written for? The New Yorker. Who else? Daily Beast. I like his books. I read mostly his books. But his book Outliers, wonderful book. Suggest everybody read it. He's been a staff writer with the New Yorker since 2006. He's written 5 books. One of them being Outliers. Who else does he write for? Someone else. Is he a contributor with, is it the Daily Beast he's a contributor with? I know he does. What was the other one? Oh, The Guardian. Yeah. That's good. I guess it's kind of close, but yeah, he's a contributor for The Guardian as well. But the book is Outliers, and with Outliers, essentially, it's a book about the underdogs, or perceived underdogs. It's the many stories of, David and Goliath. It's essentially David and Goliath. The stories of success, and why were these people successful? And I thought the David and Goliath story was very impactful, because opening it up and understanding what is inside and making this tick is really paramount to understanding. So many people have went along in life, even at that time, thinking Goliath, the big muscle-bound guy, the giant Goliath, the warrior with shield and armor and sword. He was the favorite. He was the one that was supposed to win. He was the odds-on favorite by far, because he was going up against a guy that was a sheep herder. So a warrior that makes his life fighting and battling versus a guy that makes his life making sure sheep don't run away. It doesn't seem like an even match. And it isn't. If you're just looking at the rules of play. What they looked at and said, Goliath is going to beat David because David is a sheep herder. He's not skilled in hand-to-hand combat. He's going to get chopped up. He's going to get beaten quickly. And had David decided to get into hand-to-hand combat, he would have. He would be dead. But David didn't want to play to the strengths of Goliath. Goliath didn't know that. The Israelites and Palestine, they didn't, the people involved didn't know that. No one but David knew that, even though he made it clear. When he went to the king and said, hey, why are you guys so scared of this guy? I mean, I've fought off bears and lions and wolves, all kinds of dangerous creatures guarding my flock. What's this one guy? He doesn't even move. He's just big in there. His presence is scaring you off. I do it with a sling. David had every intention on bringing a gun to a knife fight. Nobody else picked up on that. So when he comes running down this hill, no armor, no sword to slow him down, because I told the king, I'm not going to wear your armor, buddy. It's clunky. It slows me down. I can't. It's harder to move. I need to move. I'll pass. He passes on the armor and the sword that everybody uses in combat. No, he was a slinger. He had his gun. Comes charging down the hill. Some smooth rocks he found not too long before. Flings it. Hits Goliath between the eyes. Knocking him down. Rendering him indefensible. He takes Goliath's sword, chops his head off, and holds it up to the people. Like, this is your champion? This is the guy that you're bringing to me? You try to take God's land with? This is the guy you bring? Told him to go run tell that, basically. And that's a lot of what I saw in the Eagles up to and even after the time Wentz left. Everybody seemed to have talked themselves into this narrative that the Philadelphia Eagles are the underdog. They are the ones that, are not the favorite in winning here. History says the Patriots have won more. The Patriots are the warrior. They are the champion. They're the ones that are going to win this thing. They're Goliath. They have the sword and size and armor and Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. and Josh McDaniels and Matt Patricia. You know, they have the, that armor and experience. They've done it before. We've all witnessed the Patriots in battle and slaying their enemies. We've seen them win 5 Super Bowls. 5 Super Bowls over his 18-year career. Their 18-year career together. I mean, Belichick's career is longer than 18, but their 18-year career together. We've seen that. We know what they can do in battle. But, you said, you don't have a starting quarter. Your franchise quarterback went out. You don't have that starter, the NFL starter, air quotes, starter. My question is, what do you mean? Not a starter. What are you talking about? When people say you don't have they don't have their starter, they don't. Nick Foles. Nick Foles is not a starter. He went to other teams as backup and it wasn't successful. Yeah. But like I said, and the segue in here, not everybody is just interchangeable. You can't just put anybody in any system. You think because you have a quarterback, he's good or bad because you have him and what he's done in the past. You have to take in consideration of how he works in people's systems. How does he work? And obviously, when he gets into a situation and he's playing on a team that does not work with his strengths, he's obviously not going to get the desired results you want. We saw Jeff Fisher is not what was really good for many quarterbacks. I mean, he had Case Keenum too. He had Case Keenum too. They're no good. It's no good. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work out. I'm sorry. Nick Foles is just not a starting quarterback. Really. That's interesting. I find that interesting. So many people seem to collaborate on this idea that Nick Foles is not a starting quarterback. Because the funny thing is, he came in as a rookie, and he played pretty well. Pretty well. Came in as a rookie in 2012, threw for 1,600 yards, and completed 60% of his passes in a situation that transitioned into 2013, putting up almost 3,000 yards, averaging 9 yards per attempt, 27 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. He lost 2 fumbles. With RTA, again, that's passer rating, 119. His quarterback rating was 71. Again, passer rating, quarterback rating are a little bit different. They went 10-6. Got Philadelphia to the playoffs. They played against the Saints team that was really, they were favored. The Saints team was 3 times more likely in what people have for odds. 3 times more likely to make it to the Super Bowl than the Eagles. I mean, they gave the Eagles basically 0. They had no chance. Less than 1% chance of making it to the Super Bowl. So it's crazy to sit back here and think, oh yeah, by the way, that season he was a Pro Bowler too. The following season, he turned around and throwing about 60%, completing about 60%, 2,100 yards, 13 touchdowns. Quarterback rating 65. He dropped off a little bit, but what happened with the team dynamics? What happened with the team in 2014? Can we let's look at the team in 2014. What did he have then? The scope of the 2014 regular season was a bit different. How was his personnel different? Jeremy Maclin, he had him. 1,300 yards. LaShawn McCoy still had him. Another 1,300 yards on the ground. But what was different? They got Sproles that year. But we've seen some struggles with health. He hurt. Mark Sanchez had to come in and play. And Mark Sanchez put up 2,400 yards in that system. They actually ended the year with Matt Barkley. He had to play sometime. I think he only one attempt. Very short amount of time playing. But this is where it kind of started to unfold for them. It changed. Zach Ertz was young. He had 700 yards. So, again, the chemistry was starting to build. And then what happened with the coaching? Coaching sent McCoy away. Send Maclin away. They keep Ertz. Keep Sproles. They move on some of their defenders. Top defenders. So the chemistry changed. They battled with some injuries. They had some adversity. They didn't end up on the season the way they had wanted to in 2014. They had some setbacks. Foles gets traded. Obviously Fisher wanted him pretty badly. So they trade for him. He heads to Missouri, to St. Louis. Okay, so there's that setback. So if Foles never leaves Philly, is that the case? Do they make more playoffs? Because they still won 10 games. They just didn't make the playoffs. They went 10-6 the next year. They just didn't make the playoffs. And again, in the playoffs, when they lost to the Saints by 2. A team that was more than 3 times more favored to win the Super Bowl than they were. So a team that was favored more, even though it was pretty much in that situation. I think they got 2.5. I think they ended up getting 2.5. Again, that was a home field advantage. So it was really a toss-em. Had this been on a neutral field, the Saints would have been favored. They get 2. Every home team gets 2 points. Vegas gives the home team 2 points. All right? They say, you're at home, that's worth 2 points. The half a point is saying, they're at home, they're probably going to play a little better. So they got an extra half a point for being at home. So 2.5 points for being at home. Because they're more likely to win at home. Saints struggle on the road at times. That's what they end up winning by 2. Okay? So it's not like the situation that they were in, losing in the playoffs, and then not making the playoffs, were so much different. They end up, other teams, essentially in 2014, it was the Seahawks. The Seahawks end up getting 11 wins. They were 11-5. They edged them out in the wild card. And it was the Seahawks that ended up going to the Super Bowl and playing the New England Patriots, of course. So, again, the team that won one more game is the team that edged them out in 2014 to get into the playoffs. Essentially, they fell a game short. Half a game, whatever you want to call it. So, again, Nick Foles performed well. He was a Pro Bowler. He was on his way to having another Pro Bowl-like season. And he got hurt. Then he got traded. Then he was in a bad situation. He ended up coming back. Now he came back in a situation that worked. A system that worked with the way he plays well. In a place he was familiar with. It's when you sit back and you really read the words and just don't skim over the pictures, you start to understand there's more to it. Adding the context. So when you sit back and see that, it's not, this is how it's understandable to me. The Eagles still have a chance of winning the Super Bowl. Don't count them out. Have their odds reduced? Of course. They've reduced. But they're not out of it because Foles has done this before. He has brought this team to the postseason. He's played in the postseason. He's been successful with coaching that has understood how he works. I understand that the staff there with Foles and having Foles there, they're the guys that drafted him. So it's not like people were unfamiliar with him. He was in a familiar situation. He was in the realm of blooming in success. That's why I wasn't worried. And like I said, it's to his benefit that Wentz went out when he did. Because it gave him a few games to work more with the first team, gel more with his team, and get that momentum going. And people thought because we've seen the Falcons blow out the team to get into the Super Bowl, and they only carried that for a half, and then the Patriots come back and won in overtime. So it's not. They're not going to be able to sustain it. And when the Eagles went up, they were up, 16-3 at one point? Was it? Let me pull that back up here. I think it was 16, was it 16-3? They were up 16-3 at one point? They were up 15-6. And got up. Patriots came back within 3. They went back up by 10. The Patriots actually came back and went up 33-32. They took their lead in the game. In the second half, which people are like, oh, here's that comeback. The Falcons, the Eagles, the other bird of prey, were able to capture it back in the fourth quarter with the Ertz touchdown, which is the first touchdown I want to address. Okay. So, Sunday, when this happened, I know a lot of people have been, again, I don't know if it's talked into or it's been talked so much about, it became confusing. This touchdown was pretty cut and dry from what I saw. And the call on the field was touchdown. And people thought, oh, well, because it popped out, touching the ground, it popped out, and, it's not completed. It's an incomplete pass. Okay. And then they pointed to was the tight end from the Steelers. I know Skip Bayless, right? Well, the Steelers tight end, he caught it and he reached over the goal line and it was ruled incomplete. Now, here's the big difference. In the situation where the Steelers tight end against the Patriots, in that situation, it wasn't Jesse James. Jesse James caught the ball. Okay, so he caught it, and what we were trying to figure out, and this is the funky part about if you caught it and possessed it as a catch. You can catch it and control it. Once you've caught it and controlled it and then made an athletic move, you can then cross a plane or lose it and it be a fumble. But the alterations in this catch rule, essentially, this is what the NFL wanted to reduce the number of fumbles. And this is one area where they found out, the catch, the ball comes out, it's a fumble, and the change of possessions they felt was hurting the game. The too many change of possessions. It was. They felt luring people away from NFL. I don't know about you, but change of possessions have never turned me off from a game. I would say replays that are really long, 8, 9, 10-minute replays, where we're looking at the same thing. And again, just a little caveat to this too. There is a point of diminishing returns for everything. Information being one of those big areas. So the more information you get, it isn't always the better. And I think kind of with the reviewing play by play, being able to review things frame by frame rather, it could kind of cloud our judgment. And because you can see it frame by frame, you can see movement more. If a blade of grass touched leather, touched ground, it is not incomplete. It grazed the blade of grass. It kind of has, over the course of the season, has played negatively. After, was it 5 or 6? There's actually 5 or 6. I don't remember the exact number from the call with the media, the conference with the media, but they actually overturned the 5 or 6 catches that were actually catches. They overturned them as incomplete during the season. 5 or 6 of those. Again, that sounds like a lot. I know a lot of people, oh my God, the butterfly effect, who would be there? Oh my God. Now, listen, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. You can't change it, but it's good that they have that information. But what we saw in the Super Bowl was a better understanding. I think more of the evolution of it, moving into the new season, right? It was too technical. That's why it spent too much. They had too much information, and it was overloaded. So they made the wrong decision because they had too much information. Now, you can catch the ball, and so is he possessing it? Does he have control? So how do you establish control? Is it not moving? Well, that's the thing, is the understanding of catching it. You can catch and be considered having control of the ball while the ball is moving. So essentially, being able to change the ball from hand to hand, hold it within your hand, to understand, there's points of where you can clearly see that the ball is just not free. It is being guided in some way or manipulated by the receiver of the ball. That's what they look for, right? So we saw Ertz catch it, brought it in, made 3 steps. The tackle, I can't remember who it was, swiped at his legs. As he swiped, he made an athletic move to dive and reach over him. He crossed the goal plane. Okay, so he got it. 3 steps made him a runner. He's a runner now. He's not a receiver anymore. He's not the receiver. He's already received it. He's possessed it. It's his. He owns it. He has a deed on that and a mortgage. It's his to do with what he pleases. And he dove over a defender to get into the end zone. Once the ball, with a runner, crosses the plane of the goal, it is now dead. What happens with that ball after that point does not matter. He possessed it. He crossed the plane. It's a touchdown. Really, really no reason to review it because he possessed it. He became a runner. He crossed the plane of the goal. That's all that's required. But all scores are reviewed. So they're reviewing it. So people are like, oh, the ball caused a fumble. Well, it doesn't matter. The ground can cause a fumble. The ball can be fumbled if it crosses the plane as a runner because it's a dead ball. Very obvious to me during the game. This was not Chris Collinsworth highlight game. This wouldn't be the one if he was making, I wouldn't have to, but if he was making a demo tape, this is what he wouldn't use this. That game wouldn't have been on the demo for an employer. It would probably have been like not talked about unless brought up. So that was a catch. That was a touchdown. So what's the next one? Clement. And it's Clement. Like a clementine, orange, Clement. So Clement catches the ball, brings it in his body, and has established control as his first step is on the ground. So his foot is already touching the ground. That's one. The next foot touches down. He has possession still. Ball's kind of wiggling. He's, covering it up with his arms, But never at any point in time was the ball free. It was moving, not free. 2 feet down. Third step, he tries to get inside. Toe touches out of bounds. He maintains the ball because the third step did not count because he touched out of bounds, but he maintained because he's still a receiver. 3 steps is runner, 2 steps receiver. Got the 2 steps, so he has to maintain control of the ball through the contact with the ground. Right? His body's contact with the ground. He maintained it. Ball did not touch the ground. It did not come loose. And it was ruled a touchdown. Again, where did he get control? How was it control? Now, out of all of them, that was one kind of could have went either way. Because if they went it, again, frame by frame, you look at it, does it help or hurt? Going frame by frame, if it's not bluntly obvious that his foot was coming down, touched, after possessing control of the ball, foot down, control, maintained through contact, out of bounds, then they have to go with the ruling on the field. So the ruling was touchdown, which I think is correct. It was a touchdown. So because there wasn't something glaringly obvious that it was not a touchdown, and they couldn't definitely say that, depending on who's looking at it, may call it either way, but they definitely, I felt that the ruling was correct, and they felt the ruling was correct. So they said that, they didn't confirm it, but they are saying it's a touchdown, because confirming is saying that, yes, in the review process, what we originally call, without a doubt, that's what it is, There wasn't a confirmation in that sense, but it stood. Play stands. So we're going with what we see on the field because we didn't see something that was glaring enough to say it wasn't a touchdown. It would look more like a touchdown than not. So it's a touchdown. So, again, another good call. I know a lot of Patriots fans on the last play. All right. They see Chris Hogan get shoved by a defender. Yes, that's illegal contact downfield. Yes. But here's the thing. Referees are going to swallow their whistle in a big game like this at the end. Because when that ball's in the air and he got shoved while the ball was already in the air, essentially what they want to say is everybody has a right to make contact and go for this ball. They don't want to call any pass interference in this case because everybody has a right to it. So, was it pretty obvious and they didn't call it? Yes. Is that something that Patriots fans could be mad about or should be mad about? Sure, fine. You can be mad about it. Was it a missed call? Yes, absolutely it was a missed call. But in that situation, you're going to get those. So you have to be ready for that sort of stuff. Chris Hogan getting down there didn't really make any difference because he was coming in behind. He wasn't ultimately where the ball was going. It was going to Gronk. Gronk got close to getting his hands on it. It got batted down, bounced off him. He tried to recover. He couldn't. Ball hit the ground. I think it was Hogan then jumped in and caught it off of bounds. And it was the end of the game. Those were the three, essentially, calls for either touchdown or missed penalty that was missed. Now, I'm bringing that up now. The one that has kind of surfaced today is that Nick Foles, on the trick play where he caught the touchdown, they should have called, a legal procedure or a legal formation on that call because of where he was standing. They didn't, which it'd been funny if they did, and Doug Peterson would have went nuts. Again, I don't know if that was or not. I didn't see it at the time it was. I don't see it now thinking about it if it was or not. There was times where the Patriots had some illegal motion going on. You can only have a certain number of people moving at a given time on your offense, and where they're moving to. You can only have so many people moving at one time. I think at one point in time they had 5 players. All 4 of the wideouts and the running back all were moving at one given time, which would be, illegal motion. So, again, didn't get called. They swallowed whistle. You're going to get gives and takes in these games, and they're going to try to call less unless it's egregious. Patriots had a few times it was blocking in the back or holding. Didn't get called. There's give and takes. You can go through the entire film, and you can see give and takes all over. So I don't have any issue with officiating or the calls that were made. Was it a catch, not a catch? At all. So, But clearly, again, getting back to the David and Goliath, getting back to the Davis and Goliath. Hold on a second. Hold on, let me read this. Yeah. I'm going to get it. We have him on the line? Okay, good. Yeah. So we're just working on getting our guest on the line. Yeah, I'm going to get into that. So I texted him. Okay. But we can clearly see that the Eagles had an experienced quarterback. He was the backup before the guy that they had in there, who was an MVP front runner to the point of when he got hurt. They had a guy that was experienced in their system and had been a Pro Bowl player and had the last time he was there, 10-6 seasons. Came close to going to 2 straight playoffs before he was shipped off to somewhere he wasn't a fit. Yeah. Then you got what? Now you got Jay Ajayi, top 5 guy in the league, running back. LeGarrette Blount knows the opposing team, hard runner. He's going to get you somewhere. They had Clement there as well. I mean, you had well-versed backfield. Now let's look at the wide receivers. Obviously, Alshon Jeffrey's the best wide receiver in the game on either team, all around. Speed, hands, he was the best. He showed up early. Then you got their number 2 guy for the Eagles, who's had a breakout season, and Nelson Aguilar. And you have Tracy. And again, he's been here before. He was there with the Ravens. He was on that squad for the Super Bowl. I mean, I don't think he was on the squad for the 49ers. But he played in San Francisco. The guy is a veteran guy. He's more of a speed guy downfield. They didn't expect him to be able to go over the middle and make catches with his hands. He had good hands. He showed it. He had like a David Tyree against the helmet catch. So, yeah, it was. They had the tip of the hat at wide receiver. It's just with those 3 guys. Then they have Selleck, veteran in the league, block and catch, and then Ertz, which could match, receiving skills with Gronk. Yeah, they have him out there too. So they clearly had more weapons, and they rated the best. They actually won the Eagles won the award for best offensive line in the NFL. The NFL Honors Award just the night before. They won the best offensive line in the NFL. On the other side of the ball, you got a defensive line that create all kinds of havoc all year. Defensive backs that's really showed up. And Malcolm Jenkins and Darby, had guys that could really play. So if you're looking at it, roster for roster, and how the teams work together, I mean, the clear advantage was actually Eagles. But the big difference wasn't the weapon. It was how the weapon was used. And Doug Peterson decided to bring a gun to a knife fight. He didn't target the middle of the field and slants and everything that they had tendencies to do during the regular season. More posts, more dig routes, more wheel routes, more situations where they were able to move and manipulate the defense, whether it was in man or zone, and find pockets, find holes. And a guy that's been a former Pro Bowl quarterback and that has led 2 teams in Philly to 10 wins or more, played like that. Played like he had more experience. Played like the system fit his skill set and he was comfortable. That's how he played. And it shouldn't be news. But people try to convince and confuse, I guess I would say confuse too, thinking that he's a backup. How would the backup quarterback come in and win? He's been their starter. He was a Pro Bowler. He just ended up going to a place where a guy that was a head coach really wasn't good at it. Wasn't good with quarterbacks, and he was in a system, a situation just didn't fit him. You know, how many of you have ever had a job and you're just like, I don't like this job? You know, like I could be the manager better than the manager. How many times have you thought that? Like, I'm smarter, more talented, and better with people than this guy that's supposed to be my boss. Or you're somewhere, you know, I have somebody training me. They're younger than I am, less experience in life and work than me. But this guy's telling me what to do? He's trying to teach me? I don't know about that. I mean, how many people, just think about it. Just think about it. This country is, on average, more people are staying in their jobs longer, for longer periods. Older people are working longer. They have to. Too much inflation. Dollar doesn't go as far as it used to. Pensions aren't there anymore. Healthcare isn't provided. Got to pay for all that stuff. Yeah. So, you know, sitting here thinking that, he's a backup, it's idiotic. It really is. It's so simple. It's basic. If you think that, he's a backup, that's miraculous, you're basic. You're a basic bitch. Sorry to tell you. You're basic. I feel like a 2 Chainz drop. I need to get a 2 Chainz drop. Right there. She basic. Let's work that out. We get that? She basic. Something like that. Well, we'll work on that. We'll work on some sound drops there. But, I don't know. I don't know if Rob's calling in tonight. Oh well. The show will go on. But so it's a great game. Again, I think just like David and Goliath, too many people thought because of the armor and the shield and the sword, and assuming that this was hand-to-hand combat, that the Patriots would win. They were the favorites. They should win. And it was surprising and upset that the Eagles did. But if you really don't skim through and look at the pictures and actually read the words and understand the context of what's being presented to you, the Eagles had all the clear-cut advantages here. All of them. And the big thing that they did, especially at halftime, that was different than what the Jaguars did, is they kept playing football till the clock was done. And they decided that they would go on 4th downs and try to convert. That they would play into halftime and try to convert and score. They did that throughout the game consistently. Pushing. And that was one of the big things the Eagles did. And that maybe they learned that from what the Jaguars mistakenly did against the Patriots. Because for all intents purposes, the Jaguars were a better team. They played a better game. Overall, they had more talent than the Patriots, but they didn't finish. 30-some seconds in the half, they kneel, go into halftime. They were there to try to get by with a win instead of earn a victory. And for that, the Patriots won and went to the Super Bowl. Eagles, we're going to do our thing. We're going to keep moving forward. We're going to break some tendencies that we've had all season, but still keep true to ourselves. You want to call us an underdog? Cool. We'll support that. We'll feed off that. We're not supposed to be here, even though we clearly know we are. Oh, we don't have the talent or regards to be the champions, even though we know we are. You want to call us this name? You want to use this word against us? Underdog? All right. We'll embrace it. We'll take the power out of the word and use it for our benefit. And they did. So, I mean, we are, how much time? About 10 minutes till overtime. If you still want to call into the show, 347-237-5539, around 10:30, maybe earlier. Here in the next few minutes, I'll get into the NBA, the Lakers here within the last hour, and the relationship between LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. But first, the man I told you about earlier in the evening, I didn't think he was going to make it in, calling it a show tonight, but he did. I'll bring him on here in a second. Again, if you want to see the post-game reaction, go over to the website, thechtonsports.com. If you're struggling with internet connection, or I don't know, whatever, or knowing how to use Google or a browser, just go to the CHT on Sports on Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, Instagram. Find or me, Snapchat, all of them, at the CHT on Sports for the show and site, or me at Matt Long Sports. You can find it there, as well as going over to his handle and finding it there. And that man is Mr. James Bell. Again, he's a boxing editor and a top contributor here for the Cold Hard Truth on Sports. His show is every Sunday here on the Go Long Media channel on Blog Talk Radio, starting at 7:30, the Boxing Source. He is, like I said, James Bell. How you doing tonight, James? You there? Yeah, he's at J.
Yeah, just getting on here.
Okay.
Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, he's at J Breezy 42003. That's his Twitter. You had your reaction up pretty quick last night for the Super Bowl, or Sunday for the Super Bowl. I've spent most of the night talking about situation that's going on in New England. They thought they were losing everybody. They're keeping like half of them. Most of them. They're basically losing Matt Patricia. It seems like at this point, that's all they're losing. And the Eagles winning, again, kind of try to break down my understanding of who was David, who was Goliath, and why it was so important that we understand the context and read the text instead of just skimming through looking at the pictures of things. And if we really looked at it, I mean, the Eagles should have been the odds-on favorite by a wide margin to win this game, but they weren't. But they won. So what did kind of give us what did you take from the Super Bowl? I mean, obviously everybody kind of enjoyed it, but What was your takeaway from the Super Bowl on Sunday?
Well, I'm going to see if I can get at it from, the the preview that was posted, and then pretty much go at it from, reactions after the game. In the preview, I kind of pointed out a couple of things in reference to what happened for, both teams getting into the Super Bowl, with the Philadelphia Eagles basically, running their offense on all cylinders against the Minnesota Vikings defense. That was one of the best statistical defenses in the National Football League. And so, with that, they were going to be going up against the New England Patriots, who were not a better defense as far as yards allowed, but they didn't really give up points there. So the key was going to be, what were the Philadelphia Eagles going to do in the red zone, if they were going to be able to take advantage of being in the red zone if they got there. And on the flip side, you had the New England Patriots. I mean, a couple of weeks before, we weren't sure if Rob Gronkowski was going to be, part of that game, but they were able to be cleared. He was able to be cleared. First half, he wasn't really a factor. First drive in the third quarter, he was a major factor, and was able to get 2 touchdowns in the second half. So, I mean, those are two things that were kind of pointed out here after the game. But my overall reaction after the game was, if I was a defensive coordinator watching that game over the pole, I would have had gray hair or would have been bald, because there was just absolutely no real coverage coming from the defensive backs on both sides of the ball. I don't know what type of coverages were being called, but a lot of times these receivers were catching open passes, and they were catching passes over the middle, and DBs were missing tackles, so receivers are getting yards after the catch. So that's what led to the Super Bowl, having over 1,100 yards total offense. With Tom Brady having over 500 yards passing, and the Super Bowl MVP there, Nick Foles, having about 300, and I think it was 330 yards passing, or more than that, there with the touchdown. So that's pretty much been the overall synopsis of what happened there in the Super Bowl. You kind of pointed a couple of things out before I got on in reference to how the Philadelphia Eagles approached the game. They played well, of course, our favorite coach says, Herm Edwards, you play to win the game, and that's what they did. You have a coach that makes those opportunistic calls, or those big calls on fourth down. At the end of the first half, you also had the fourth down where they were kind of near midfield, 4th and 1. Down by 1 point, they were still able to convert in that 4th and 1. So, by making those plays, those are plays that, basically won the game for
them. And that's kind of the big thing that, I don't know, I've seen overlooked throughout the last couple weeks. And Chris, I don't know what, I felt at different times Chris Collinsworth was seeing something completely different. I don't know. I don't want to say he was biased
it's Chris
in what he wanted the outcome to be.
Yeah.
In fairness to professionalism, but it just at times was like, what? What? What do you?
Well, I mean, it's Chris Collinsworth. There's not really a lot of people that really like him being there alongside Michael. So, I mean, he just has some type of little dumb way of, being a follow-up to Al Michaels' play-by-play calls. So, I mean, it's, something that he's kind of to me, Chris Collinsworth, listening to Chris Collinsworth on Sunday Night Football or NBC is the equivalent to me listening to Mark Jackson on ABC for NBA games. It's just useless to me. So,
No love for Jackson.
No left for Jackson. No, I mean I could I could name a lot of folks that are on the ESPN ABC crew that do a much better job than Mark Jackson does. QB Brown is of course number one on that list, but we can't have QB Brown there every single time.
We could try. Why?
Yeah, we could try. You know, we could write letters maybe, I guess, but who knows?
Now,
but I'd rather see Mark Jackson as a head coach than being a commentator.
Yeah. And I definitely think he should get another run as a head coach. I mean, I don't think he did much wrong in Golden State. It was just kind of a situation where they wanted to make some change.
Yeah.
And now I know a lot of people.
I kind of heard something about that though.
You know, share that in a second. But you know, and I know a lot of people don't want to give Steve Kerr credit for what he's done there, saying it's Mark Jackson's team. The same way people don't want to give Gruden credit for winning a Super Bowl with Dungy's team. But it's not like Steve Kerr hasn't continued to win and bring in new people, and people want to play in a system, and the system evolving and continuing to be successful. What have you heard about Mark Jackson parting ways?
Oh, in reference to Mark Jackson. So, I mean, the thing that I heard about him eventually leaving Golden State was that him and the owner had like clashing views. So he wasn't, Mark Jackson wasn't necessarily, down with the owner and his like overall views. I think it's like the owner or general manager. And so Mark Jackson completely denounced it. And, with that being known,
90 seconds.
We couldn't get along, and that's what led to Mark Jackson's departure. I'm out in the street.
That's and that's something. I've seen more and more in sports. Just like some of the best coaches. They're just more infamous for it. Bill Parcells was one of those guys. It's like
60 seconds.
It was the phrase he most famously used. He's like, be frank about it. If you're going to do the cooking, like to shop for some of the groceries. And sometimes ownership and front office and the head coach clash. They don't have, reflecting ideals. And the coach sees what he's done and knows what he can do and wants to go one way, but ownership or front office want to go a different way, and they aren't able to work together. So they decide to part ways instead of work through. So it's not the end of the world. And again, I wouldn't begrudge him for wanting to go in a different way because he doesn't
10
agree
seconds.
with ideology. But kind of at the same time, you want to kind of understand more of, is there a common ground in ideology? Is there something that you can do to enhance a situation instead of moving completely away from it? You know what I mean? So those are kind of some of the things that, again, some of the more successful people are able to work better with people and find common ground or compromise to be able to ultimately work through a situation. But again, it's not mutually exclusive to having or being successful. Obviously, the Warriors show that they can move beyond it. Good for them. But definitely Mark Jackson. I'd like to see him get another shot somewhere. I don't know where, but somewhere. I haven't gave much thought to what would be the best fit for him. But that kind of moves me on to talking about team relationships. LeBron James. Now, this is a certain situation that, and I'll go ahead and let me tell the story here of what the LeBron James saga is and why some people have left and went different directions and why some have stayed, you know? So this whole time, we go back to when LeBron came back to Cleveland. He wanted to come back to Cleveland. He wanted to win a title for Cleveland. It's his hometown. That was his intent from the beginning. Happy to go to Cleveland, a team that hadn't won anything. So he's happy to be there. He wanted that to happen, you know? It's like any guy out there, your favorite team or your home team or your college team or whatever you're growing up, the team that you were a fan or adored or followed closely, you actually being able to play for them or make a difference in that team in a positive way. He had that opportunity with Cleveland.
Yeah.
So he relished that opportunity. But because of the owner not wanting to spend money, not wanting to put together a team, a front office, an organization that ran well, they fumbled through GMs, they fumbled through coaches, and just ultimately it wasn't working. So he wanted to win titles. He wanted to look at different opportunities. He left. For what? 4 years? 4 years. He left 4 years to Miami. Got a title there. Came close on a couple others. You know. Came back to Cleveland. Started wanting to play GM and moving some things together. Now, before he did, Cleveland had found Kyrie. They had Kyrie. He was their future. LeBron wasn't in the picture all the way up to June of that year, just before, within weeks of the decision. Really wasn't the Cavs weren't in it. LeBron's focusing on winning a title in Miami. How did we beat the Spurs? And Cleveland's moving along. Got David Blatt. He's our coach. He's a guy that can have that system like San Antonio. We have Griff, who's a good GM. He can find good talent. He can build a team around this. So we got the coach that can coach him and a GM that can bring him in. And we got Kyrie. We can build the team around this guy, and we intend on doing so. We're looking at making moves, drafting guys, got a first-round pick here. So they're understanding what they're bringing in. They bring in Wiggins. Oh, we got a scorer. This guy's a future scorer in the league. He's a big Kyrie. He doesn't have to be a driver. He can work into being a distributor, more of a point guard that can score. You know, he can grow. We'll find out if he can become our superstar. He is our franchise. We'll see if he can become a superstar. And this is everything that was going in that direction. Kyrie had his spotlight he wanted, and everything was working fine. LeBron changed his mind. He wants to go home. I'm homesick after 4 years. I want to bring Cleveland a title. They have Kyrie. I see Kyrie here. That's a good prospect. Wiggins, we can deal him and get Kevin Love. I want Kevin Love over here because I think that's a guy that I can win with because he can shoot, he can play down low, whatever. He can be my Chris Bosh without blood clots. You know, my white Chris Bosh without blood clots. Well, let's do that. So we get him. You know, we're moving this guy. You know, so he kind of alienated a lot of people by coming back, but not many teams. Nobody's gonna say no. Hey, LeBron's like, hey, I want to come play for your team. Most teams aren't going to say no. I don't know anybody that's going to say no. They say yes. They work something out. They work out their differences, evidently. And second year back, he wins the title. Yay. Dan Gilbert is now satisfied because he won a title. Overnight, getting LeBron back, his franchise essentially more than doubled in value just by getting LeBron back. The economy ran better with LeBron there, just overnight, from him saying, I'm going back to Cleveland, right? So that happens. Kyrie alienated, his spotlight stolen away, and now his role is being dictated to him. Doesn't like it. He wanted to be traded before he signed the deal, his second contract. He wanted to be moved before that. They didn't want to do it because he saw the dysfunction then. It wasn't working. So he said, "We're making all these moves. You stay here, and we're gonna build this team around you." Oh, now we got LeBron. So they tried to sell him as we're gonna build this team around you and LeBron. And it just never worked like he wanted it to. It never progressed into what was promised. So he wanted to leave. He kept wanting to leave. I don't want to be in Cleveland. I don't want to be in this market. I need more room to grow. I'm stuck in too small of a fish tank here. I need more room. LeBron's looking at it like, I'm coming back here and setting it up for you, and then you get the keys to the house. I just kind of want to come and dress it up for you. Because that's the way he looked at it. I'm making this better for you. I plan on you being the star for Cleveland in the future. Kyrie, didn't talk to him about this. LeBron had plans for Kyrie that Kyrie didn't have for himself. It didn't work because there wasn't an understanding between two. So I don't want to be here to begin with. And right when I'm getting a situation that's better for me being here, you come and stomp all over it, LeBron. Now you want to, it's like having, your sister's successful brother move into your house and just take over. It's my house, bro. You get bounce. So, but that thing is, he's like, you know what? Forget it. I'm going to leave. You stay. I leave. He leaves to go to a different situation. And Kyrie's doing as good, if not better, there than he was in Cleveland. It worked out, right? Now, what is ownership looking at? If we're going to lose Kyrie, we don't want to lose him. But Kyrie says, basically, I'm not going to play. You either trade me or I won't play. I can figure out reasons why not to play. So trade me. So they did. Get something out of him, which I think was good. I think that's way more responsible of Kyrie than what LeBron is doing in the eyes of the Cavaliers. LeBron has a no trade clause. He has options up the yin yang. Basically, he can make his whole contract a 1-year deal from year to year at max, whatever the highest paid salary in the league is, basically, and can demand more than that. Otherwise, he leaves. So he has the Cavaliers kind of hostage. He's not going to revoke or waive his no trade clause. So he's going to sit there and say, you do this. If you don't do this, Dan Gilbert's got back to the situation. He got a title. He's got a lot of money out of the franchise. He's floated the idea of selling it out there. And again, not to LeBron. Again, that idea is sticking it to LeBron because LeBron wants to eventually be in ownership and preferably the Cavaliers. But Dan Gilbert doesn't want to sell the Cavs to LeBron James. He doesn't want LeBron James to be the winner there. He might sell it. He doesn't know. He's floated the idea out there. But if LeBron leaves, he wants to get something of value so he doesn't get stuck with a bunch of cap and no talent. And then what? Now it's several years of going back to picking the first overall pick again. He doesn't want to do that. So, he that's why he moves Irving. He wants to be moved and get something out of him. They did. I think Cleveland got more out of the deal than Boston did. Some people argue not. But obviously it's not a situation that people like being in. Because now we're hearing Isaiah Thomas say, things aren't running the way they're supposed to. The promises that I was made about my contribution and how I was going to be a part of this team is not being sought out. It is not being followed through on. I mean, you're telling me one thing, you're doing another, and I don't appreciate it. And he's upset also at the situation that he planned on being in Boston the rest of his life. And he was told that, you're going to be here. You're going to be here. You can settle down, buy a house, buy 2, and then he gets traded. And that's the thing. He He's just mad at all the situations. One situation doesn't work out. They're not utilizing him how he understands he needs to be used to be the most productive, to be the guy that he was last couple seasons. And Cleveland still doesn't have people to facilitate what LeBron wants. It's continuing, we need someone else, we need someone else, we need someone else. But I don't think LeBron really knows what personnel he needs. And at the same time, Cleveland isn't able to get those kind of guys to come to Cleveland. Because as much as people may want to play with LeBron, people don't want to play in Cleveland.
That's where it is. That's where the whole thing is reference to their play. And go history, right? You had LeBron James there. That first run, they were trying to get folks there to play for them. Trying to get free agents there, they couldn't do it. And so you had that, summer free agency. And during that summer free agency, the thing was that LeBron was trying to get some like Bosch in Wade or whatever to come to Cleveland, but he wouldn't do it. And so it was more beneficial contract for Bosch and James to go to Miami than for Wade and Bosch to go to Cleveland. So that's why you had, those three over there in Miami there and having that 4-year run where they were able to make it finals. So, LeBron's there, 4 consecutive finals, 3 championships, and then he basically goes back to Cleveland. Now, in those 4 years, Cleveland basically had 2 number 1 picks. While, they had Kyrie Irving. So even with Kyrie Irving, they still end up having to, have 2 number 1 overall picks. The first guy didn't even, pan out for him. He ended up being in the developmental league. And then Andrew Wiggins is there, and they ended up parlaying that to get Kevin Love. Like you heard Kevin explaining how Kevin Love was basically like, Chris Bosh. But the thing is, like, somebody like Kevin Love, they were able to bring over to Cleveland at that time because he wasn't really that type of player to kind of like go to a larger market at the time. If he would only pretty much just be going to LA or something like that. That's pretty much it. But anywhere else, probably not. So, Kevin Love ended up being there, and they were able to get to, those consecutive, NBA finals, and, winning one. And it's like, after that, after one of the Cavs won, it was like a Magic Johnson tweeted. It's like you really, now that, LeBron James brought his house to Cleveland, you really can't ask any more of him, for the rest of his career, basically. Because he really, wanted to do ever since he got to the league. And that's, winning the NBA championship for the Cavaliers. So he was able to do that. Now he could pretty much move on. But now, it seems like we're in the same situation that he was at before his first time being at Cleveland. And that, they got players, but these players aren't basically handed out. And so now we're going up here in the trade deadline to see what they're able to do here to see if they can raise one more run at an NBA championship. Right now with this current team, they really can't win an NBA championship. And, I feel like they are in danger of not even making it to the NBA finals. Isaiah Thomas has not really been, somebody that has worked out for him. He's not really fit well in the start lineup to me. So they're going to have to do something, with that because he's a defensive liability, number one. And then number two, he's not really shooting very well at all from the floor ever since he, got back into that. So they're going to have the offense basically pick up and catch up with the defense. But I think that's just something that is a contrast to what they were beforehand. Because, even though David Blatt was, kind of like released by Cleveland, he kind of like emphasized defensive philosophy
defend Ty Lue real quick. I've defended David Blatt in the past. But defending Ty Lue for a second. He is a defensive guy. He knows a lot about defense. In college, his coach, Danny Nee, was a defensive guy. He came into this league and cut his teeth as a defensive guy. We saw that as a very young guy in the league in the finals against Allen Iverson. He spent more time guarding Allen Iverson in that finals, which they end up winning all but one game. He was the guy that spent more time on Allen Iverson than anybody else. Did Allen Iverson get the best of him a lot of the time? Absolutely. Because he's a great. He's an icon. He's a phenomenon, you know. He's once in a generation type guy. He is a very unique guy. Skill level a lot above Tyronn Lue. But can we discount, which many people do and shouldn't, the defense that he played? No, we shouldn't. Without Tyronn Lue there, with his speed and defense, that he was able to molest, is the best way to put it, not really contain, but molest Allen Iverson, I think the Sixers win more games. They don't win the series, but they win more games, definitely, because he has more of an opportunity. Tyronn Lue took away opportunity from Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson has said that. So to think that he doesn't have a defensive prowess or ability or way to coach it is nonsense. It's because the players, particularly one player, fill in the blank, doesn't want that. They want something else. You know? I'm surprised that, you know, that LeBron being in situations hasn't reached out for a coach like Van Gundy. This run and gun guys. Be the first player to really make run and gun work. You know? I think, you know, I don't know. Maybe he does, and then he tried to convince him to bring the Matrix back. I don't know. It befuddles me what he wants to do and what he wants out of things. He doesn't. They don't want the defense. Well, he's a defensive player. Okay, yeah, he's one defensive player of the year. LeBron James doesn't chase down balls like he used to, and it doesn't matter if one player plays defense. You have to have a unit of guys willing to play defense. The Cavaliers have nobody to protect the rim. Kevin Love doesn't want to, and they don't utilize him like that. They have nobody to protect the rim.
Yeah.
So what do? Oh, let's try to trade. Let's try to trade for guys that, again, why do you think he has so many rebounds? Again, I'm not taking away from his ability to get rebounds or assists, but LeBron James wants to get assists. He'd rather have more assists than points. He enjoys what makes LeBron, what knocks his rocks, what gets him off, is seeing other people succeed because of him. He doesn't just want to be the best. He wants you to be at your best because he's the best. That's how big it is. It isn't. That's the thing. That's the thing about Magic. Magic knew he could do a lot, but he could make other people better. And that's what he did. So,
yep.
LeBron likes that. Again, LeBron and Magic have a lot of things in common, and Magic just got in trouble. Just so people know, it's not breaking news anymore, but earlier today, the NBA decided that they were going to fine Magic Johnson, the Lakers, $50,000 for tampering because of a tweet. Wasn't it a tweet? He basically said that, if the Lakers could win championships with the Greek Freak, again, that's saying that, this specific guy, this team can benefit from, and this is how, or this is how we benefit, that they say, that's tampering. You can't, pitch people. And by the way, Magic Johnson has done a great job of pitching people. And another guy that's done this, that's used social media pitching outside of really the constraints of it, but people don't know how to look at social media, because social media it's there for everybody's view. So if you say something about someone, well, it's just my opinion. I'm not saying it to them. I'm just saying it about them. So if I say something about them and about the team or whatever, and if I imagine this person was here, what would happen? That's just my opinion. I'm not telling them they should come here and we should do this. It's just saying that, again, it's a form. It's a form of in the workplace, it would be called sexual harassment. It's a, hey, I would knock the bottom out of that. I'm telling you, I'm not saying I'm going to take you home and strip you naked and we're going to do the wildness, but I would definitely do that. You would be happy, and I would have memories stored in your brain. Not that any of that's going to happen. So Lane Kiffin's another guy. He does that. He's been doing that all year and kind of trolling in a sense. But again, that sort of recruiting is, again, leagues don't know how to govern these sort of things. Magic is probably one of the first guys that, because he uses it more and he understands the tool, they say, you know what? We see what you're trying to do, Magic. No. And you know what? He's fine.
Right.
He'll pay the $50, because the $50, that $50,000, which is nothing, it's like $50 for him. They got his point across.
He has like $50 for him.
Yep. That's exactly what it was. Yep. She's going to move her cubicle here. You move your cubicle there. Play nice with each other at work. Don't talk about that stuff at work with her, Bob. That's sexual harassment, You could get fired for that. Okay, I won't do it anymore. And a slap on the wrist. It's not a big deal to people. Other than the one that's affected, So that's the thing, is every other team is offended and affected by this in a way. And nobody knows how to really have that conversation yet. So, but as far as the Lakers go, again, let me finish up on the Cavs, and then I'll get into the Lakers, because obviously that's a good segue. LeBron is not going to stay in Cleveland. I've said this since he came back to Cleveland, and when things have started to, not go his way there, and he's starting to see more of the same sort of stuff. Winning a title there kept him there today, but that's not going to keep him there. He's not going to finish his career there. I know people last year said, "He will finish his career there." He said he has every intention. Ideally, LeBron would like to finish his career there. He would, but people won't come to Cleveland. People aren't coming to Cleveland. The owner is just not working with him. He doesn't care. He's apathetic at this point. He got a title. He's got his money. He could sell the team. He's in a spot where he's like the 80-year-old person, backing out of the driveway. They could give two shits about you coming down the road, using a blinker, where you're at. They don't know what's in a blind spot. It can just stay dark there. They don't give a shit. They're 80, they're 85 years old. They've lived long enough. If I'm going to hit something, hopefully I hit it hard and I'm done. I'm out of this world. I don't give a shit. 85 years old, you should be paying attention to me backing slowly out of my driveway and stop or go around. Why does my old ass have to pay attention to you? That's what the whole mindset is. He doesn't care. He's completely apathetic. He doesn't care. No apathy. I'm sorry, no apathy. He's not apathetic. He doesn't care. So that's the thing, is now
Right.
LeBron is in a situation where he's not going to get to buy the team. The owner's saying that I'll give you money. You just stay around and do your thing, you know. LeBron doesn't want to be his escort anymore. Yeah, doesn't want to be his escort. I don't want to be here to do this with you.
Right.
I'm leaving.
Yeah,
I'm gonna leave, and hopefully next time I come back, you're not here. That's what he's hoping. That Dan Gilbert sells it.
Yeah.
And then whoever buys it would be interested in LeBron buying in with them. So, you know, it's kind of that sort of situation.
But, yeah. And, before you get into, the next thing with the Los Angeles Lakers, touching back on LeBron James, his overall, like I said before, his overall mission was to bring an NBA championship to Cleveland, right? And that is going to be his defining legacy, is bringing a championship to the city of Cleveland. I mean, that's equivalent to the Chicago Cubs winning the World Series championship, getting their first one since 1908. I mean, people thought that the Chicago Cubs would never win a World Series championship. They were able to do that. And, with LeBron James, before LeBron James, Cleveland Cavaliers fans never thought that they would win an NBA championship. And so, with him being able to do that, he should be able to be free to go wherever he wants. But the thing with the Cleveland Cavaliers side and the front office is that they don't want to have LeBron James leave with nothing in return. Basically, absolutely nothing in return. Because if that happens, then the franchise will be back to the same predicament that they were before LeBron James joined the team. And they don't want that. So, and that's that. So, if he doesn't want to be there, then he doesn't want to be there. But that shouldn't tarnish his legacy one single solitary bit. We're in an era where free agency allows you to go to anywhere you want to go. They didn't have that in the NBA years ago. If they did, you would have seen so-called NBA legends already be in another team. So I don't buy this whole thing about LeBron James leaving Cleveland. That tarnishes his legacy. That's BS to me.
Yeah, there's no legacy tarnishing. This thing is like people look back at it. It's gonna hurt his legacy. Listen, the guy is what, 6th all time in scoring, like 3rd all time in assists, like the rebounds is up there. Like he's the only guy, like statistically, statistically, LeBron James is the best all-around player in NBA history. I don't dispute that. I don't think he's the best basketball player. He's not the best that I've ever seen play the game. He's the best all around. He's best all around, but he's not. I still think Michael Jordan is the best I've ever seen.
You know what? In here, I'll put a rebuttal to that.
But I guess what I'm really getting by is all I'm really trying to make the point is that it doesn't really hurt his legacy or tarnish anything for him to go somewhere else. Jordan got tired. Jordan got worn out. He didn't want to deal with certain things. He went into ownership and trying to run a team. And he felt that the team couldn't be coached or played well enough, so he said, screw this. I'm going to give this back with the understanding that I get to buy it when I'm done again, and then I'm going to try to will this team to winning. It didn't work, and you know what? They didn't sell it back to him. Pissed him off, too. So he went and bought a different team. Now he owns all of that team, So, that's the thing. He ended up finding a way back to what he ultimately wanted. LeBron, same situation in that regard. It doesn't matter who he plays for. He wants to keep winning titles. What's going to be better for him? What's a better option? Location, location, location. People want to move to Southern California. People like LA. People like the exposure. People like the international appeal to it. You know, second largest city in the U.S. You have lots and lots of things to sell Southern California. Taxes aren't one of them, but still
Right.
a lot of other things are. So, that's definitely appealing. He owns several properties there in the greater LA area. His kids go to school there. His wife is there most of the time. Can he do his business transactions? Can he work his business better from LA than he can from Cleveland? Yeah, of course. Can he do it from anywhere? Yeah, really, he can. He can. He doesn't have to be in LA. It's just a better move. It's a better location. The office looks better in LA than it does in Akron, you know, in the Midwest suburbia. It looks better in LA. It just does. I'm sorry. You know, I mean major banks aren't mostly congregated in downtown New York for some strange fluke. Obviously, that's the place to be. A lot of activity happens for banking near Wall Street, on Main Street. You know, they get that. They want to be at the epicenter. And for business, for acting, for production, for film, for a lot of stuff he wants to do business-wise, being in LA is more beneficial for him. It just is. And you know what? It's not going to be with the Clippers. He doesn't want to go to the Clippers. It's the Clippers. It's a better situation of the Cavaliers. It's just in a better city. He wants to be with something. He wants to understand that he can be the prestige. Again, if he can go to the Lakers and become the best Laker, in his mind, he's better than Kobe Bryant. He's done more than Magic Johnson. Now, if he was a best Laker, how do you dispute that if he's not better than Kobe or Magic? You can't. His legacy is fine going to LA.
To me, he's already better.
Going to Houston doesn't make sense.
Already better than Kobe.
Nobody's going to OKC. Really. People don't want to go to Cleveland. Really. Minneapolis is a struggle for a lot of people. Denver is a struggle for a lot of people. Okay? Great cities. I love Minneapolis. Denver's awesome. Chicago, too. If it wasn't for snow and cold weather, I'd live in Minneapolis, Chicago, or Denver. Denver's probably the healthiest city. Like, I went to Denver and immediately felt bad. Like, I felt insecure. Like, I need to go run. Like, pull this van over. I know we're going to a basketball tournament, but pull it over. I will jog there because everybody's freaking jogging. Everybody looks fit. Everybody looks healthy. Like, I'll grab a kale shake on my way there, or whatever the hell you serve here. That's working. But whatever's in the water, I mean, I wanted to drink. I guess the thinner air gets people to move more. I don't know. It's just one of those phenomena. I felt that. I wanted to be healthier being there. That was awesome. I don't like cold. I really don't care for cold weather. I mean, I made that very obvious in Atlanta. I made that obvious in Tampa last year for the national championship game. I don't like cold weather. I just don't. I grew up in it. I can be in it. I just don't want to. That's a different thing. You know, kind of like LeBron. I could deal with playing for a Cleveland, and, you know, I love Nebraska. That's where I'm from. I'm proud to say I'm from Nebraska. I love it, but I don't want to live there. It's cold. Cleveland, same thing. Same thing for him. There's not many people that say, hey, you know, I want to get my career going. I'm going to move to Omaha. Let me move to Lincoln. Not many. Not a lot of people. Usually military people do that because they end up at Offutt. Or they found some killer job that just overpaid for them to go there because that's what they have to do. You have to overpay for people to come to, you know, again, Lincoln, Omaha, both good cities. Lincoln a little bit more quality overall if you're looking for family. If you're looking for more metropolis, go to Omaha. I mean, I'm just saying, it's, you know, you can get what you want there. You just understand that it also comes with snow, sleet, rain, cold ass weather, like minus, like they say, oh, it's -7. Like I heard somebody bitching at the Super Bowl so in February in Minnesota it was -8. That's really cold. That's not that bad. -8 in February is not that bad. I'm surprised it wasn't colder. I mean, there was times where they said it was -40 with wind chill. And we were like, yeah, let's go play football outside. Like kids, we didn't care. Adults, when you got shit to do, it matters now. I got to de-ice my car and find it, But first, I got to dig my way out of the house. Like, when you need tools inside your house to get out of your house, you get snow drifts, and if it drifted all the way around the house, you kind of got to go out a window or the garage door. If you have a garage. There's people that had carports in Nebraska. Like, why? You can just put up a couple more walls and a door and shit doesn't get in here. But they didn't. They had carports. I think the carports are the dumbest, laziest thing ever. You just need 2 more walls, and it's an actual structure, like legitimate. Couple walls. Is it that much more? But they don't. But, I mean, it sucks. If you've never experienced digging snow, like go scoop a driveway and sidewalks with, like 10 inches of snow. And if your back and arms are good after that, like, yeah, I'm good. I want to go run. Let me go do something active. Then power to you. Go live in snow. But I'm telling you, snow gets heavy. The more that it snows and the more that it starts to melt, it gets heavier, more dense. Starts to get icy. It's cold. It's so cold out, you have to put on so many layers that you're sweating. So you're sweating in sub-zero weather. It doesn't make sense, but you are because you have so many layers. Wonder how you get sick? Shock the body with cold and hot. That's how you get sick. And then the wind hits your face. But if you expose your face too long, you can get frostbite. So you can lose your face shoveling. So you can now have access to roads. I don't want to risk losing my face or fingers or toes just so I can get out of my driveway. Sounds too chaotic to me. I've dealt with it. I don't want to. That's me. Some people think the snow is pretty enough to deal with it. Oh, it's so pretty. I can sled. If you want to sled your ass to work, you obviously live too close. I don't want to live that close to my job. Not even if it's a home job. I want to get away from that too, I don't know. Maybe it's me. But for all intents and purposes, I see LeBron leaving Cleveland, most likely for Los Angeles. Most likely the Lakers. Now, there's been so much and shown so much that LeBron has kind of tipped his hand. Wasn't he wearing... He was wearing LaMelo's or LeVar, what's his name? Lonzo Ball's shoes the other night. He Instagrammed it. He singled out the shoes in color, everything else in black and white, and drew arrows to it. Like literally saying, hey, this is what's up. What are you going to do? Can he be fined for tampering? I don't know. Can it go the other way? It seems pretty obvious. Like, if you're saying that. So now, from what I look at it, the way the tea leaves read to me, now Lakers have to kind of shift. They can't say, oh, we're doing a power play on LeBron. We're changing our views for 18 and 19. We're not really pursuing him in 18, even though he can opt out. Maybe we have a better option in 19, but we want to look for our future here. We're not really going to talk about LeBron anymore because they don't want to get hit with tampering. So it's kind of like, it's not that they stopped. They're just going to make it seem like they're not interested, So it almost seems like, this ownership is trying to. It's like that the guy is like, hey, I like your girl, and you think I like your girl too much, so I'm gonna act disinterested in your girl, and I know that it's not gonna work out enough to where I'm gonna get her anyways. So I'm gonna avoid a fight with you in this BS, and I'll pick her up around the corner. Not here in front of you. Too much attention right now. So I don't think the Lakers are off LeBron. I just think that they're putting it out there that they don't want to draw attention to it anymore. So they're showing you something shiny over here. Hasn't changed. Nothing's changed. They're going to expound more on what they can put around LeBron, and they're going to look at other options of what the Lakers will look like with LeBron James. So, what do you think of that, James? Did I miss anything? You there? All right.
Yeah, my fault. Yeah, you pretty much covered everything with that.
Oh, so we had about 15 minutes left in the show. I did want to talk briefly about boxing because Tyson Fury said he was going to send contracts to Shannon Briggs, Antonio Tarver. Now, being the person that I am, obviously he made it seem like Shannon Briggs was going to be his next fight, and he's going to do this host of warm-up fights. And then he said that, no, he's not my next opponent, but he's sending them contracts. So I reached out and, I said, hey, the people that are close enough to them to know, have you guys gotten contracts yet? Are they? Because you can just email that shit, print it off, But essentially, the one person, what they told me is, let me read it. One source. This is what they said. This is what one source said. He must have sent it horse and carriage. It's not here. There's no contract. No contract was sent. Well, at least again, not yet. And I don't know if he will. But again, one person is close enough to know. Said he must have sent it by horse and carriage. Tyson, you know there's water there? Don't send mail by water if you're assuming to do land type mailing. It's a lot. You can just email it. You could WhatsApp it. You could Dropbox it. Shit, you could probably just Facebook message it, to be honest with you. I mean, text it. There's a lot of easier ways to send the contract. I mean, how detailed is this contract? I don't see where it would have to be more than a page or two, even if it was two-sided. And I think that would be pushing it. So, I'm just waiting on those contracts, buddy. I want to see you fighting, but
yeah, he isn't really about that life, man. Fury is just basically trying to do almost the same route as your boy did when Briggs wanted to fight him, David Hay. David Hay said that he was going to
fight Shannon Briggs, but he said, under the condition that Shannon Briggs is part of, his undercard, and Briggs fought on his undercard. Briggs won, and after that, you didn't really, see or hear nothing about David Haight fighting Shannon Briggs. He ended up fighting Tony Bellew and ended up getting injured during the fight and ended up losing the fight. So Shannon Briggs just doesn't want to go through that same thing again with Tyson Fury. He's like, yo, if you want to fight, then let's fight. But don't send me a contract and say that you don't want to fight me, and have like a kind of like a guarantee on the back end. I've already went through that before. I'm not going to go through that again. So he's like, yo, he's better off just being his own guy and then just getting a fight on his own than having some type of stipulation added on to something that he should have already had in the first place.
Yeah. It's such funny business sometimes. I don't know. Outside of that, you wanna update people on what we're looking at this month in boxing?
Well, I mean, real fast, you have events going on that are upcoming in February 17th. There's kind of like a semi-low upcoming on February 10th. There will be like a world title fight on February 10th, but not really major for a lot of the fight fans out there. But February 17th is kind of packed. You could have Danny Garcia fighting Brandon Rios, Las Vegas. You're also going to have Devin Alexander fighting Victor Ortiz over in El Paso, Texas. So that's part of the field weekend there on February 17th, and that also includes a super middleweight championship fight over in England. So I'm pretty much preview that on Sunday's show on February 11th.
Okay. February 11th, 7:30 here on the Go Along Media channel, Blog Talk Radio. We'll highlight that. James will highlight that. So there's a lot of stuff going down. So we're getting closer to having more information, finalization for the April 14th fight. Bud Crawford, who's going to be on the ticket. Ultimately, the venue. It's going to be in New York on April 14th. We know that. I know that for sure. It will be Terrence Crawford and Jeff Horn. Who else is fighting? We don't know yet. Don't know yet. Once we do, we will definitely pass that along. So, but that pretty much wraps up the show for this evening. Thank you all for listening in. If you're listening to the podcast version of the show, just know all the places you can hear it. You can Blog Talk Radio on the Go Along Media channel. So that's blogtalkradio.com/golongmedia. You can get it always on the website, thechtonsports.com, the listen link in the upper left-hand corner, on Spreaker. So you can listen to the live show on Spreaker all 3 hours. So if you're listening live, I know you're listening on Spreaker right now because the overtime segment is only live on Spreaker. You can download the free app. That's Spreaker. It's like speaker with an R, an extra R. Spreaker. Star is the app, a little star. Awesome app, easy to use. Also, podcast version, SoundCloud. Who doesn't use SoundCloud? Everybody has SoundCloud. You can get us over on iTunes, Somos. Again, I haven't used Somos, but we're on Somos, I'm told. So if you go over there, tell me how things are on Somos, and maybe I'll eventually can figure out how to get there. But there's so many ways to reach us, find us, get us. YouTube, of course. Go to the CHTN Sports channel or Matt Long Sports channel. You can subscribe there. Boxing Source or James. It's just the Boxing Source is the channel you have on YouTube. It's just the Boxing Source.
Yeah, it's just a boxing source.
Okay. You can check out the Boxing Source. Subscribe, all of them. Not just one. Get them all. So, but anyways, I appreciate everybody listening in. We get more and more people every week. Continue to share the shows. Tell your friends, tell your family. So we appreciate you listening wherever you are, however you decide to listen. We appreciate it. But for this evening, we're out. So stay tuned. We got more stuff coming out this week. Tomorrow's National Signing Day. I have more information coming up on pro days and combine. NBA continues to get close to the playoffs, so we know we're going to be talking about that. Tiger Woods is going to golf again this weekend, so definitely going to be talking about that next week. So more and more things happening. But for tonight, world, we're out. Peace.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.